You've been shadowing for months. You sound great in your room, so why do you still freeze the moment a real conversation starts? This episode changes that.
Okay, so I have to tell you something embarrassing. And I mean genuinely embarrassing.
Oh no, is this the shadowing thing?
It is the shadowing thing.
Okay, go. I'm ready.
So I practiced for 6 months. 6 months, Sarah. Every single morning, Spotify podcast, earbuds in, repeating everything like half a second behind the speaker. I was obsessed. I thought I was basically fluent.
And then?
And then I ran into my coworker James in the hallway. Native speaker, super casual guy. He asks me something simple, something I had literally rehearsed the week before. And I froze, completely blank. My mouth opened and nothing came out.
Nothing?
I said, and I'm not joking, I said, yes, the weather.
You said yes, the weather?
He was asking if I'd seen the new coffee machine in the break room.
Okay, so for anyone who just landed here, this is English Couch. I'm Sarah, that's Mike, and we just relived what might be the most painfully relatable moment in his entire language learning career.
Thank you for that introduction.
Here's the thing, though. What happened to Mike isn't rare. It happens to almost everyone who uses shadowing as their main method. And nobody talks about why, which is exactly why we're here today.
Because here's what's actually going on. Shadowing makes you sound good, sometimes really good, inside a practice session. You follow the audio, your mouth catches the rhythm, your accent starts to shift. It feels like progress, real progress.
But the moment you're in an actual conversation, no audio to follow, no script. Someone just said something unexpected, and your brain has to generate a response in real time. And that is a completely different skill, one that shadowing never trained.
By the end of this episode, you're going to have a method to replace your shadowing routine, something that actually builds the part of your brain that works during real conversations. And there is one thing about this, one specific moment in how the brain processes language that even advanced learners get completely wrong. We're getting there.
But first, the thing nobody explains about why shadowing actually fails.
Okay, so here's the thing that most people miss. When you shadow, you are not learning to speak, you are learning to follow.
Say more about that, because that sounds like a small distinction, but I think it's actually a big one.
So your brain in a shadowing session is basically doing audio processing. Hear sound, reproduce sound. Hear rhythm, match rhythm. It's almost like muscle memory for your mouth. You're training yourself to track something that already exists. But in a real conversation, there is no audio ahead of you. You have to generate the sounds from nothing. You have to build the sentence in your head and then speak it.
Which is honestly a completely different neurological process. Like, it's not even the same region of the brain doing the work.
Exactly. And here's the thing that got me. I once timed myself during a shadowing session. My lag behind the speaker was about a third of a second, which sounds impressive, but that means I was always reacting to something I heard. I never once had to originate a single word.
No cap. I did the same thing for like 2 months when I was learning. I sounded amazing in my room. My friends were impressed when I played them recordings. And then I got on a Zoom call with an American colleague for the first time, and she said something slightly unexpected. The sentence structure was a little unusual, and I paused for way too long.
That pause is the tell. That pause is your brain going, wait, where's the audio I'm supposed to follow?
Okay, so the way I'd say it is shadowing trains your echo, but conversations need your voice. And this connects to something that's going to reframe how you think about listening entirely. We're getting there in a second.
So the method is called rhythmic mapping. And before you zone out because that sounds like something from a linguistics textbook, it's not. It's actually a really simple shift in how you use the same audio you were already using for shadowing.
Instead of repeating behind the speaker, you do something different. You listen once, fully, no interruptions, and you map the structure, not the words, the structure.
So, what does that mean in practice? Say you're listening to a podcast and someone says, "Look, I get where you're coming from, but honestly, that's not how it works in real life." Right. In shadowing, you'd repeat that sentence. In rhythmic mapping, you stop after it and you ask yourself three things. Where did the stress land? Where did they pause? And what was the move they were making? Like, what were they actually doing communicatively?
That third one is the big one. What were they doing communicatively? That's the difference between learning the sentence and learning to speak. Because when you understand the move, in this case, pushing back while staying warm, you can make that same move with completely different words.
Right. And this is where a study from 2019 at the University of Texas gets interesting. They tracked adult second language learners who used shadowing versus learners who used what they called anticipatory listening, which is basically the same idea as rhythmic mapping. After 8 weeks, the shadowing group improved significantly on pronunciation tests, but the anticipatory listening group scored higher on spontaneous conversation tasks by a wide margin.
Which honestly makes sense now because you were training different things the whole time.
The shadowing group got better at the thing shadowing tests. The other group got better at the thing real conversations test.
So, rhythmic mapping. 3 questions after every chunk of audio you practice with: stress, pause, move. That's literally the whole method at its core.
Okay, so this is the part that kind of broke my brain a little when I figured it out, and it pays off something I said at the very top of this episode.
The yes, the weather moment?
The yes, the weather moment. So here's what actually happened in that hallway. James asked me about the coffee machine. My brain heard new and coffee, and it immediately went to the most activated neural pathway it had, which was a script about weather, because I just practiced a weather conversation that morning.
Wait, so your brain wasn't frozen, it was active. It just grabbed the wrong thing.
Exactly. And here's the insight. The real problem with 6 months of shadowing is not that I didn't practice enough. It's that my brain built a library of audio clips instead of building a system for assembly. I had memorized phrases like files, but I had no retrieval mechanism tied to meaning or context, only to sound.
Oh, that's actually wild because that's the thing advanced learners get wrong that you mentioned in the intro. They think more input fixes the problem. More shadowing, more hours, better audio. But you don't need more files, you need a better filing system.
Right. Rhythmic mapping builds the filing system because when you're asking what move is this person making, you're attaching the language to intention, not just to sound. And intention is exactly what fires in a real conversation.
That is genuinely the best explanation of this I've ever heard.
I've had a while to think about it. James from accounting really changed my life.
Real quick, if this is clicking for you, if you've been doing shadowing and something always felt slightly off about it and you couldn't name it until right now, that feeling is the whole point of this channel. This is English Couch. We're here every week.
And we do have a monthly top 3 learner thing. It's not a giveaway or a contest. It's just us recognizing the people in the comments who consistently show up, help other learners, share their practice, contribute to the conversation. We notice those people. We call them out.
Subscribe if you haven't. It's the only way to know when a new one drops. Okay, let's put all of this together.
All right, so let's do a real scenario. You're at work, a native English-speaking colleague walks up and says, "Hey, did you get a chance to look at the report? I want to run something by you before the meeting."
Old you, shadowing brain, hears report and meeting, grabs the nearest cached script, Possibly says something like, yes, the meeting is at 3, which is technically accurate and also somehow completely wrong.
New you, rhythmic mapping brain, instantly processes, okay, this person needs a quick check-in. The stress was on run something by you, which means they want a small conversation, not a full briefing. The move is open a door, buy time, be warm. So you say something like, yeah, totally. Give me like 2 seconds. What have you got? Short, real, conversational.
Notice what happened there. You didn't memorize that response. You understood the move your colleague was making, opening a door, and you matched it with the right kind of energy. That's fluency. Not having the right words stored, having the right instincts fired.
Stress, pause, move. You heard the stress land on run something by you. That's the key phrase. You heard the slight uptick at the end. That's an opening, not a demand. And you understood the communicative move, casual check, not formal request. You responded to all three at once, without thinking.
That's what 6 months of rhythmic mapping does that 6 months of shadowing never could. And the wild thing is, you can start today, same audio you've been using, just a different question you ask after each chunk.
James from accounting would be proud.
Okay, here's your challenge for this week. Find any 60-second clip, a podcast, a YouTube video moment, a TV show moment, anything with natural spoken American English. Listen to it once all the way through. Then go back and pick out one sentence, just one, and ask yourself those 3 things. Where did the stress land? Where did they pause? And what was the communicative move?
Here's a concrete example. Let's say you pick the sentence, I mean, look, I hear you, but I'm not sure that's the whole picture. Stress lands on whole picture, pause is right after look, that's deliberate, and the move is gentle disagreement while staying respectful. Now you know the move. You can make that move with your own words, in your own conversation.
Drop your version in the comments. Write the sentence you picked and then tell us what the move was. That's it. We read every single one.
And we always want to know what's been tripping you up. Anything about English that feels confusing, inconsistent, or just weird. Drop it below. Genuinely, we build episodes from those comments.
Okay, for the record, yes, the weather is now my favorite thing that has ever happened on this channel.
I had to commit to telling that story publicly for people to actually understand why shadowing fails. The things I do for language learning.
Next week, we're getting into something that trips up even C1 learners. It's about how native speakers use silence, not pauses, silence. And it is so much more specific than anything you've heard about this before.
Subscribe if you haven't. It's free, and it helps more than you'd think. Like it if the coffee machine story hit close to home. And honestly, send this to one person who's been grinding shadowing for months and wondering why their conversations still feel off. This episode is for them.
You had literally 1,000 other things you could be doing right now. The fact that you're here means something. We'll see you next week.
Stay curious. Don't say yes the weather.
Don't say yes, the weather.